So, in my deep dive today, I'm going to be talking about something that I call Mawhiba Capital. I'm really excited actually to share this. So, we're going to dive into how young Saudis are leveraging access to science capital in order to reshape their futures and kind of move around traditional barriers in education and work. And it's kind of a really exciting topic for me because this is where I do a lot of my research. So as we all know, Saudi's Vision 2030 has a very strong push toward STEM education, science in general. I mean, think about the space agency and some of the other investments that are being made in science and technology, engineering and math. That's what STEM stands for. But one key initiative that's really moving the needle on that and leading this movement for young people is National Olympiad for Scientific Creativity, which is known in Arabic as IBDAع, and it's run by Mawhiba, which is a not-for-profit educational organization that's actually called the King Abdulaziz and His Companions Foundation for Giftedness and Creativity, known as Mawhiba for short. So last week, Mawhiba announced the names of 40 young Saudi men and women that have been selected to represent the kingdom at the Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair. This year, it's going to be in Columbus, Ohio in May. 200 made it to the final and 40 of them made it to the Saudi international team. So some of you may remember that it was in Los Angeles last year, and I was there with the students and had been on the journey with them throughout that kind of filtration. So in 2024, I was learning all about that process, and my paper is currently under review, but I thought that this would be a great time to talk about that since they just announced the new winners. Every year, thousands of students from across the kingdom compete in IBDAع, hoping to make it to the global stage at ISEF, the International Science and Engineering Fair that's sponsored by Regeneron. In 2024, around 200,000 students applied, and this year, a record-breaking 291,000 students applied, which is a huge jump from 21 students that applied in 2007. But the twist is the success in IBDAع really isn't just about science. That's a big part of it, but it's about networks. And this is where I come in. So the power of science capital or Mawhiba capital. So science competitions in general, like IBDAع, don't just test knowledge. They build capital. And by capital, what I mean is more than just skills. The science capital is access that students gain to mentorship, research opportunities, and exclusive academic circles within their scientific fields. And the top performers, they're great scientists. They're incredible. They compete with PhD student level research, but they're great networkers. And what I argue in my research is what they're building is a shift in the traditional ways that social capital has been accumulated in Saudi in the past. So in Saudi, traditional career access could be shaped, not necessarily, but oftentimes by who you know, or the term wasta can be thrown around. So, middlemen or people that can act as middlemen to kind of help you gain access through deep-rooted family connections, sometimes tribal connections, sometimes friendships, but really strong social networks that are kind of deeply embedded and handed down through generations. But these young Saudis are really showing us that they're flipping the script a little bit on this. So instead of relying on kind of that old school wasla, they're building new networks through STEM competitions and through this participation in Mawhiba. So the IBDAع journey takes students from small regional competitions to the national stage, then to ISEF in the US, where they meet global mentors, industry leaders, and university scouts. I actually watched a university scout approach one of the Saudi students and offer her a place at Oxford last year. But it really is all of those connections are also making in Saudi. They are basically meeting the best and brightest in their fields, the other students along the way. That's what's making the big impact. It's the mentors, the counselors, the professors, and actually even other parents. These aren't just one-time connections. They're lifelong relationships that they're building that can really open doors for them to the best universities, schools, research grants, tech, industry jobs, and whatever. It's incredible what they're doing. And also, Mawhiba is really leveling the playing field in terms of gender equality. What's super about it. It's 50-50. You get 50% of these 40 students are girls, 50% are boys. And this is, social capital and science capital in particular is often very gendered, and boys usually do much better in topics like physics and maths, and they're selected to actually participate in those types of competitions, and also oftentimes university access for young men into those fields is just more of a natural step, and women tend to shy away from those specializations. But Mawhiba really does kind of level that playing field. IBDAع offers equal access to boys and girls, and the research shows that actually young Saudi women in Saudi Arabia are thriving in these competitions. They're breaking into elite networks on the same footing as their male peers. And actually, when they announced the winners' names, when I was in that hall last year, you could just feel the room vibrating when they would announce the names. But oftentimes, yes, you did get those support networks. So the girls would support each other, the boys would support each other, but everybody was cheering for everybody. But it definitely, you could see that there was a bit of a competition there to see who was going to make it. And obviously, they all support each other, even if they're in a competition, because they know they're then going to go and represent Saudi. So they kind of wear the flag when they go abroad, and that's a big part of it. But, there's some real impact here. In 2023, Saudi students won 16 major awards at ISEF, including 2 global first place wins. And they're not just bringing home trophies. They're meeting with the Crown Prince. Mohammed bin Salman had an audience with them. They're getting featured in the media. They're actually followed like celebrities while they're there. They're securing university scholarships. Take Faisal al-Mhesh, for example. His award-winning project developed an electrocatalyst that produces hydrogen from seawater, first place in chemistry on a global stage. Or Latif al-Ghannam, who placed second and is now competing, and then competed again in 2024 and won again. So they're not just competing, they're shaping Saudi Arabia's future in sustainability, in medicine, and AI. I think there's 28 different areas that they do their research in. And just to pan out a tiny bit and put this into kind of the broader picture of Saudi and education. So Saudi's performance on international standardized testings like PISA and TIMSS has historically been far below global averages, actually. And investments in this area has really led to recent improvements in the last rounds. And it points to a continued education strategy that focuses on STEM for the future of work. So several longstanding education initiatives, both inside schools and run by nonprofits like IBDAع, have been elevated to occupy a new position of prestige, to some degree, actually urgency as well. And so the scholarship program has been redesigned to focus on educational excellence. It narrows the number of institutions that people can study in to the most elite in the world. Otherwise, they can access education within the kingdom. They also are aligning the scholarship program with labor market needs and looking at specific areas where we do have a need to skill new kind of new talent. And young Saudis, they really do understand this urgency. Think about it, 291,000 students from across the kingdom applied to compete in these science fairs in order to then maybe make it to the final, but they were all engaged in thinking about science in order to submit these applications. And this is just one little strand of what Mawhiba does. So Mawhiba runs so many different science, maths, and other kind of like smaller competitions for students from quite young ages within schools, but also as summer programs and outside of schools. They also contribute to so much of the content that is out there for young people to access in order to prepare for these competitions. And then they are building networks with universities. So the students who have good projects can access labs, go work alongside professors in these labs. It's incredible. And actually, obviously, the better the university, the more likely it has the equipment that these students can use to actually build their projects, prototypes, whatever it is that they're doing. But that's actually improving university facilities because there's competition amongst universities on who can sponsor these students, who can provide the mentorship and the guidance and the supervision for these students' science projects, because it's very prestigious for them also. And the students end up publishing, and they're in high school. It's just insane. So a lot of these secondary students are building their science capital by exposure to science events, educational programs, competitions in order to secure their future work in the new Saudi economy. IBDA is just one brand of prestigious science competitions, and Saudi students have achieved a phenomenal track record. ISEF organizers believe that this is indeed a testament to the level of mentorship and funding that the kingdom is dedicating to the program. So it's led to an increased interest in high stakes extracurricular academic competitions for these young people. And across the country as well as internationally. And as I mentioned, over the past few years, the IBDA competition has drawn thousands of applicants from all corners of the country, not just the elite schools, not just elite students. It really is elevating kind of national and international standards that these students are achieving. It's, I think, one of a kind and phenomenal. But my final thought, this is a new era of opportunity. The big takeaway, IBDA isn't just about science. It is, and it's massively about science. These are really, really cool nerds, but it's about social mobility. And the students are proof that access to the right networks can redefine opportunities. And as Saudi Arabia continues to invest in STEM education, one thing is clear. As one student told me, your network is your net worth.
I mean, it feels like yesterday, right? That you were in Los Angeles with this group from last year. And just thought it was so cool what was happening. And it makes you wonder which of these future leaders that are being, gathered in Columbus, Ohio this year, Los Angeles last year, will end up being famous household names, not just in Saudi Arabia, but in the region and the world. What this is the best and the brightest that are not, handpicked because of who they know or who they are, but what they can be and what they can accomplish on their own. These guys and girls are the future. We talk about the King Abdullah Scholarship Program a lot. That was a program that ran from the early 2000s to sort of 2015, 2016, 2017. There's a new version of it now that's smaller and more focused on a more select number of schools, but the results of that program we are seeing and feeling now in Saudi Arabia. You're seeing these Western educated technocrats now start to rise up the ranks of ministries and the private sector, and what they learned in the US and what they brought to the US and left there, you're now seeing sort of the product of that. And this is like a hyper elite version, smaller version of that. But what it will do is it will define Saudi Arabia's future. You're talking about a place that wants to lead the world in AI and in telecom and other places like that, other sectors like that, I should say. Well, those sectors need leaders, and those leaders it's human capital. So they're being developed now for those future industries and to lead the world, not just Saudi Arabia, in those areas. It's so cool. This program is amazing. That's all I have to add to it, because I think your rundown was awesome. But I just think that this is the type of thing that we love talking about on this show. It's not something that's going to make the front page of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post, but the impact that it will have on the future of Saudi Arabia, the future of the world is you can't even measure it, but you can think about the potential. It's so awesome. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and with the scholarship program, right, the custodian of the two holy mosques scholarship program today, as you said, it's narrower, but actually I think the tracks make a lot of sense, because if you get into one of the top 30 universities globally, you can do whatever you want. You can specialize in underwater basket weaving. If you get into Oxford and there's a program, it's whatever you want to do if you're in one of those top 30 universities. But then within the other tracks, if the programs align with some of the kind of labor market needs that Saudi's identified, then again, there's over 200 universities, and they're not just in the West anymore. You can go study in South Korea, you can study in Japan. You do need to show language proficiency if you're going to go to one of these countries that doesn't where the mode of instruction isn't necessarily in English. But there are a lot of other tracks now when you think about scholarships abroad. But I think it's also important to recognize that there's, I think, 37 universities inside Saudi Arabia, right? And they're public universities and private universities that students can access, plus incredible training programs inside the kingdom where people can learn incredible technical skills. Some of these scholarship programs are the custodian of the two holy mosques one, but others are from different companies as well. Like Aramco has a huge scholarship program that is incredibly coveted, because you come back and you work in Aramco, and a lot of people really do want that. But I think the point is there's a lot more focus on what people are doing. You can access one of the top 30 universities globally, go study and be amazing at whatever it is that you want to do. Otherwise, we have incredible universities here, and we're really upping the game. We have a new strategy on how universities are run that's increasing competition internally to make sure that the universities feel like there's an impetus to continuously improve, to innovate. The education sector is changing. It's very, very different. Obviously, with education, it's a slower moving machine because you don't see the results right away. And it takes a little bit of time for, the whole process to unfold. But the urgency is quite obvious. And things like this get people excited to learn and to be nerdy. Like, you should have seen some of the badges. There's one of the events that they do at ISEF is they have this badge exchange. And so the students will be wearing badges, usually representing their countries. And it's a student-only event. Like, the mentors and the teachers aren't really inside the room, and they just go around introducing themselves to each other. So like, the Mexican students are meeting the Argentinian students, are meeting the South Korean students, are meeting the Chinese students, are meeting the Russian students. It's just like a huge kind of melting pot of science nerds, and they're giving each other badges, and then they're putting them on. But then they have these other badges that say things like, I don't know, like puns that have to do with atoms and and protons and whatever, like, I'm not nerdy like that, and I wish I could be. I can't. They're so incredibly bright and intelligent. So yeah, I'm more of a social science nerd, and I probably make jokes about Foucault or whatever, but like, it's just a very, very, very exciting thing. I just get like so much energy thinking about our future when I think about these students.
Yeah, I'm really glad you made the point about Saudi universities as well, because when the King Abdullah Scholarship Program was launched, there really wasn't the university system, as we are seeing it now develop. It was not the way it is now. So there wasn't a great outlet for these, what ended up being 100,000 students a year, to find and nurture their talent and by leaders who know how to do it, right? And so, but now you have KAUST and you have King Saud University and Prince Sultan University, and those universities are starting to be known more for their specialties, right? With Prince Sultan being known for financial leadership and the financial services sector more than other things. And that's what a university ecosystem, when it's very developed, does. I mean, some of the best schools in the US for example, mining and anything related to minerals is the Colorado School of Mining and Minerals. And it's because of its location and because it's a specialty.
Yeah.
That's part of an ecosystem developing. And so what we're seeing is sort of like with the vision, right? You have these goals that were announced in 2016, 2017. Some of them seemed like they were impossible or nearly impossible to achieve. And then some were achieved way ahead of schedule. For the ones that are harder to achieve or are behind progress, you adjust and retool and recalibrate what you're doing to make sure that you reach that goal. And so what is happening in the university, not the university ecosystem, with youth in general, is you had the King Abdullah Scholarship. It was very general, and it was go abroad, learn languages, a cultural diffusion exercise as well. And then you have that mature a little bit. And then what's happening with this is, I mean, these young Saudis are in line with the best in the world. They're winning some of these prizes, right? So they're now at the same level of quality as students from anywhere in the world. It's so cool. Yeah.
Two more points. Sorry, I just get really excited. So they also win industry prizes, right? So there's a first and second and third and fourth place within your category, but then there's industry prizes. So there are companies that are there, just like, even if you don't win as like the best research project, you might get an industry award that is a scholarship to attend a summer program or mentorship, or it might be money toward your research. So there's some incredible industry awards as well, and Saudi gives them as well. So within the IBDA system, before they go abroad to ISEF, there are students that are winning, those top 40 spots, but then there are students that are getting industry awards that might not be in the top 40. So they're recognized for the excellence in their research as well. And that could be from different universities, but some of those are also international awards for research that happens inside Saudi that's very much parallel to some of the industries that are important within the kingdom. So it is just an incredible system that not enough people know about, but more people in Saudi are getting to know. And like I said, the more these students are doing this, the more people do know about it, because the networks that they're building are phenomenal. These students are in hundreds, they told me, hundreds of WhatsApp groups with a lot of overlap, but that's where they're giving each other advice and tips. And they don't even know how many. They don't know how many messages they get every day. They don't know how many groups they're in. They don't know how many overlap in those groups, because they give each other access to all of this information. They're sharing it because they want to see each other succeed. It's incredible. And the last thing is like the point that you made about how a lot of these kind of young people that went abroad on the scholarship program have come back and are making a difference. I can't tell you how many of these students that I met that were competing last year spoke English like they were from Minnesota or Kansas or wherever, because they were the children of students that were on scholarship. And so they learned English very, very fluently while they were abroad with their parents, who were getting their master's and PhDs and bachelor's degrees. And so you have this really interesting, diverse group of students that have already been exposed to lots of networks, so they're really good at it. They're not the only students. There were many that had never left the kingdom. I met some that had never left their village. It was so incredible, right? But that's the thing. It's just a really exciting place where Saudi brings the rest, like Mawhiba brings the rest of Saudi together. And students who are from Riyadh are for the first time engaging with and being really close with students from Jeddah, students from Jizan, students from Tabuk, students from the Eastern Province. It's a great, like a lot of students from Hassan, Eastern Province, they do really well. By the way, the Eastern Province always do the best, just FYI.
Oh, yeah, a little plug for the Eastern Province in there. I love that.
It's true, though. I'm not making it up.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway.
I also think that when you mentioned this earlier, your network is your net worth.
That was a quote from one of my research participants.
It's also my buddy's favorite kind of quote to leverage, and it's true.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it's also about, fraternity is a wrong word, but it's like they will have this sort of like
camaraderie, maybe
camaraderie. Yeah, they'll have that forever. And so 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, when they see somebody at a conference, at a meeting, on a phone call, whatever it is, and they're like, wait, you did Mawhiba in 2024, 2025. Like, I was there with you. We were hanging out. Do you remember? And they'll immediately reconnect a lot faster than, just somebody meeting you cold. You'll have that bond with you forever, and that bond will help you, and you'll be able to help others that were part of this camaraderie, if you want to call it, forever. I mean, it'll be something that'll be an impression in their life forever. So hats off to them. Hats off to you, Dr. Hanaa. It was a really terrific deep dive.